The wind cuts across the Wyoming territory like a blade, carrying with it the promise of another bone-dry summer. The year is 1887, and water has become more precious than gold in this unforgiving landscape. The German settlers who came here, with dreams of farming, have learned harsh lessons about the American frontier lessons. Written in dust and desperation, Klaus Weber stands at the edge of his withered cornfield, watching what should have been his family's salvation turn to ash under the relentless sun. Behind him, his wife Anna tends to their 3 children in the cramped sod house that represents everything they own in this new world. They sold everything back in Bavaria for this chance. This piece of the American dream that's turning into a nightmare one rainless day at a time. The creek that flows past their homestead runs lower each week, reduced to a muddy trickle that can barely support the cottonwoods along its banks. But it's not just drought that's killing their crops. Upstream, the Harrison gang has built a series of dams and diversions that redirect most of the water flow to their own massive cattle operation. Herr Weber, the voice carries across the morning stillness, tinged with the familiar accent of home. Friedrich Schultz approaches on horseback, his face grim beneath his wide-brimmed hat. Behind him ride several other German settlers, all wearing expressions that speak of serious trouble brewing. Friedrich, Klaus greets his neighbor with a nod. What brings you out so early? The Harrisons struck again last night. Friedrich replies, dismounting heavily. They diverted the entire flow of Willow Creek through their new channel. The Muller farm is bone dry now. Completely dry. Klaus feels his stomach drop. Wilhelm Muller's farm lies just upstream from his own. If Willow Creek has been diverted, it's only a matter of days before Klaus's own family faces the same fate. Anna emerges from the house, wiping flour from her hands on her apron. The rationing has been severe lately, and the simple act of baking bread has become a luxury they can barely afford. She understands enough English to catch the gist of the conversation, and her face pales as she realizes what this means for their survival. The children, she says quietly in German. How will we feed the children? It's the question that haunts every German family in the valley. They came here legally, filed proper homestead claims, followed every rule laid down by the territorial government, but the Harrison gang operates by different rules. Older rules that say might makes right, and water belongs to whoever can take it and hold it. Thomas Harrison himself is a legend in these parts, though not the kind parents tell their children about, a former Confederate cavalry officer who fled west after the war. He's built an empire on intimidation and violence that stretches across 3 counties. His brothers Samuel, the enforcer, and young Marcus, the killer, help him maintain control through methods that would make the old Apache raiders look civilized. We cannot let this continue, says Heinrich Zimmermann, his heavily accented English carrying the frustration of a man pushed beyond his limits. Heinrich is one of the few German settlers who speaks decent English, making him their unofficial spokesman in dealings with the territorial authorities. We have legal rights to this water. The territorial governor himself signed our water claims. Legal rights, Friedrich spits. The Harrison gang wipes their ass with legal rights. Friedrich language, Anna chides automatically, though her heart isn't in it. They're all thinking the same thing, that pieces of paper mean nothing when faced with men who settle disputes with bullets and rope. Klaus looks at his neighbors' faces and sees the same desperate calculation running through each man's mind. They're farmers, not fighters. They came to America to escape the wars and violence of the old country, seeking peace and prosperity through honest labor. But the American frontier has its own rules, and those rules favor the strong over the just. What does Muller say? Klaus asks. Is he willing to fight? Wilhelm's family left this morning, Friedrich replies grimly. Packed everything they could carry and headed back east. Said he'd rather starve in Chicago than die in Wyoming. The words hang in the air like smoke from a funeral pyre. Wilhelm Muller was one of the most determined among them. A man who'd sworn he'd die before he'd give up his American dream. If he's running, it means he believes the situation is hopeless. How many families have we lost now? Heinrich asks, though he already knows the answer. 12, Klaus replies without hesitation. 12 families gone in 3 months. The Harrison gang is systematically driving us out, one farm at a time. Anna moves closer to her husband, seeking comfort in his presence even as fear gnaws at her heart. Their children, little Greta, barely 6, and the twins, Eric and Otto, not yet 4. They deserve better than this. They deserve the America that was promised in the immigration pamphlets, the land of opportunity where hard work guaranteed success. We need to organize, Heinrich says, his voice growing stronger with conviction. Pool our resources, stand together. They can intimidate individual families, but they can't fight all of us at once, can't they? Friedrich's laugh is bitter. The territorial marshal is in Harrison's pocket. The local sheriff won't even investigate their crimes anymore. Who exactly is going to help us? It's a fair question, and one that cuts to the heart of their dilemma. The German settlers exist in a legal gray area, citizens in name but powerless in practice, protected by laws that aren't enforced, and represented by officials who look the other way. When money changes hands, Klaus studies the faces of his neighbors and sees the same mixture of fear and determination that he feels in his own heart. These are good men, honest men, who've worked hard all their lives and expect nothing more than a fair chance to build something for their families. But fairness is in short supply on the Wyoming frontier. There's another option, Klaus says quietly, the words coming out before he can stop them. What option? Heinrich asks, though something in Klaus's tone suggests he already knows he won't like the answer. We fight. The silence that follows is heavy with implication. Fighting means accepting that law and order have failed them, that the only justice they'll find comes from the barrels of their own guns. It means crossing a line that none of them ever wanted to cross. Klaus, Anna whispers, switching to German. Think about what you're saying. These men are killers. They won't just drive us away, they'll bury us. And if we do nothing, Klaus replies in the same language. How long before our children starve? How long before we lose everything anyway? Friedrich has been listening to the exchange, and though his German is rusty, he understands enough to grasp the conversation. Your wife is right, Klaus. We're farmers, not gunfighters. We wouldn't last 5 minutes against the Harrison gang. Maybe, Klaus concedes, but dying on our feet might be better than starving on our knees. Heinrich shakes his head. There has to be another way. What about appealing to the territorial capital? Surely someone in Cheyenne will listen to reason. We tried that, Friedrich reminds him. 3 times. They send back letters full of sympathy and promises of investigation, but nothing ever happens. Meanwhile, more families pack up and leave every week. Klaus looks out over his failed cornfield, then back at his wife and the sod house that represents everything they've managed to build in this harsh land. The mathematics of survival are brutal and simple. Without water, they'll be dead or gone within a month. With water, they have a chance to make it through to next year's planting season. The way I see it, Klaus says slowly, we have 3 choices. We can run like the mullahs. We can stay and starve. Or we can fight for what's rightfully ours and get ourselves killed in the process, Anna adds. Maybe, but at least our children will know we didn't go quietly. The conversation is interrupted by the sound of approaching hoofbeats, multiple riders coming fast across the prairie. The German settlers turn as one to see a dust cloud rising from the south, growing larger by the moment. Harrison gang, Friedrich says grimly, his hand moving instinctively toward the old hunting rifle slung across his saddle. Klaus counts the riders as they approach 5 men, all armed, all wearing the hard expressions of men accustomed to taking what they want through force. At their head rides Thomas Harrison himself, a tall man with iron gray hair and eyes like winter ice. Morning, farmers. Thomas calls out as his group reins in, about 20 yards away, close enough to be heard clearly, far enough to avoid being grabbed if things turn violent. Heard you boys have been having some trouble with your water supply. No trouble, Heinrich replies carefully. Just wondering why our creek has suddenly gone dry. Thomas's smile is cold as a Wyoming blizzard. Funny thing about water, Heinrich, it has a way of finding its proper level, flowing toward those who know how to use it properly. Our water rights are legal and properly filed, Heinrich responds, trying to keep his voice steady. We have documentation from the territorial documentation. Thomas spits into the dust. You know what I use documentation for, Heinrich? Kindling for my fireplace. Out here, water belongs to whoever's strong enough to take it and keep it. Samuel Harrison, Thomas's older brother, edges his horse forward slightly. Where Thomas is cold and calculating, Samuel radiates barely controlled violence, like heat from a forge. His hand rests casually on the butt of his revolver, a gesture that's meant to be noticed. Problem with you Germans, Samuel says, his voice carrying the lazy menace of a rattlesnake's warning, is you think this is the old country. Think you can hide behind papers and laws and government men who've never been west of the Mississippi. This is America, Klaus says, surprising himself with his own boldness. In America, the law protects everyone equally. The Harrison gang erupts in laughter, harsh mocking sounds that echo across the prairie like the cries of scavenging coyotes. Young Marcus Harrison, barely 20 but already with the dead eyes of a killer, wipes tears from his face as the laughter subsides. "The law," Marcus repeats, still chuckling. "Oh, that's rich, Klaus, isn't it? Let me explain something about American law. Klaus, out here, I am the law. My brothers are the law. These guns are the law. Everything else is just words on paper." Anna has moved closer to the house, ready to protect the children if violence erupts, but she's also listening carefully, trying to understand the English conversation that will determine her family's fate. The fear in her eyes is palpable, but underneath it burns something else. A mother's fierce determination to protect her offspring at any cost. "You want to know about American justice?" Thomas continues, his voice growing harder. "American justice says the strong survive and the weak get what they deserve. You people came here thinking you could play farmer in a land that chews up farmers and spits out their bones. That's not our fault. That's just nature. We're not asking for charity," Heinrich says. "We're asking for what we legally purchased. Water rights that were guaranteed by who?" Samuel interrupts. "By some clerk in Cheyenne, who's never set foot on this land. By politicians who promise anything to get votes." "Heinrich, you're talking about a world that doesn't exist out here." Friedrich's horse shifts nervously, sensing the tension in its rider. The German settlers are outnumbered and outgunned, but they're also desperate men with families to protect. In situations like this, desperation can be more dangerous than any weapon. "What exactly do you want from us?" Klaus asks bluntly. Thomas considers the question, his cold eyes studying each German face in turn. When he speaks, his voice carries the finality of a judge pronouncing sentence. Simple. Pack up your families and get out. Today, leave the land, leave the water rights, leave everything except what you can carry. Do that, and you can walk away from this with your lives. "And if we refuse?" Heinrich asks, though he already knows the answer. "Then we'll bury you where you stand," Marcus says cheerfully. "Your choice." This is where everything changes. The tension is building to a breaking point, and the German settlers are about to make a decision that will echo through Wyoming history. If you're hooked on this incredible true story of frontier justice and family survival, smash that subscribe button. Let me know in the comments, should the settlers stand and fight, or take their families and run? Your engagement helps me bring these forgotten stories to life. The silence stretches taut as a bowstring, while each German settler wrestles with an impossible choice. Klaus looks at his wife, at his neighbors, at the withered crops that represent months of backbreaking labor. Running means losing everything they've worked for, but staying might mean losing everything they have left to lose. "You're asking us to abandon our legal property," Heinrich says carefully. "Property we bought and paid for according to territorial law." "I'm not asking anything," Thomas replies. "I'm telling you how this is going to go. You've got until sunset to clear out. After that," he shrugs eloquently. Anna has been following enough of the conversation to understand the ultimatum. She approaches Klaus and speaks quietly in German. "The children. Klaus, think of the children. We can start over somewhere else." But Klaus is thinking of his children, thinking of what kind of world he wants to leave them, what kind of man he wants them to remember their father as being. Running now means teaching them that bullies win, that justice is a luxury that POOR can't afford. "No," Klaus says firmly, switching back to English so the Harrison gang can understand. "We're not leaving." The words hit the assembled riders like a physical blow. They're accustomed to intimidation working. Most families take one look at their guns and their reputations and pack up without argument. The idea that these foreign farmers might actually stand up to them seems to catch them off guard. "Excuse me?" Samuel asks, his hand tightening on his gun. "You heard him," Friedrich says, moving his horse closer to Klaus in a show of solidarity. "We're not leaving." Heinrich joins them, then the other German settlers, forming a loose line facing the Harrison gang. They're still outnumbered and outgunned, but there's something powerful about their united front that seems to give even the hardened gunmen pause. "Boys," Thomas says quietly, his voice carrying a note of genuine surprise, "I think these farmers just declared war on us." "Good," Marcus replies, his youthful face lighting up with anticipation. "Been getting bored lately, anyway." But Thomas holds up a hand, stopping his younger brother from drawing his weapon. He's studying the German settlers with the calculating gaze of a predator evaluating prey. These aren't the desperate, broken families he usually deals with. These men have made a decision to stand and fight, which makes them exponentially more dangerous. You sure about this, Klaus? Thomas asks conversationally. You understand what you're starting here. This isn't some gentleman's disagreement over fence lines. This is war. Real war, with real bullets and real graves. We understand, Klaus replies, though his voice trembles slightly. And we're ready. Are you? Samuel laughs. You farmers ready to kill. Ready to watch your neighbors die. Ready to explain to your children why daddy's not coming home for dinner. Anna has moved to stand beside her husband, her presence lending him strength even as fear gnaws at her heart. Whatever happens next, they'll face it together, the way they've faced everything since leaving Germany. We're ready to defend our homes, Klaus says. Our families, our rights. If you want to make that a killing matter, that's your choice. Thomas nods slowly, almost approvingly. Respect, Klaus. Takes courage to look death in the eye and tell it's a go to hell. Stupid courage, but courage nonetheless. He turns his horse and signals for his brothers to follow. Sunset. Farmers. After that, this becomes a different kind of conversation. As the Harrison gang rides away, the German settlers remain in their defensive line until the riders disappear over a distant ridge. Only then do they allow themselves to breathe, to process what they've just committed themselves to. Mein Gott, Friedrich whispers. What have we done? What we had to do, Klaus replies, though his own voice shakes with the magnitude of their decision. What any man would do to protect his family. Heinrich dismounts and begins pacing, his mind already working on the practical problems of their situation. We need to organize. Create a defense plan. Send word to the other German families. What other families? Friedrich asks bitterly. Half of them have already run, and the other half will pack up the moment they hear about this confrontation. Then we fight with what we have, Klaus says. 5 families. 15 men and older boys. We make them pay dearly for every inch of ground. Anna tugs at Klaus's sleeve, her eyes bright with unshed tears. When he turns to face her, she speaks in rapid German. Klaus, this is madness. We have children to think about. How can we protect them if we're all dead? How can we protect them if we teach them to run from every bully? Klaus replies in the same language. Anna, if we give in now, what happens the next time someone decides they want what's ours? The argument might have continued, but Heinrich interrupts with an observation that chills everyone to the bone. Look, he's pointing toward the eastern horizon, where a thin column of black smoke is rising into the clear morning air. The smoke is coming from the direction of the Muller farm, the farm that Wilhelm Muller supposedly abandoned that morning. Wilhelm said he left this morning, Friedrich says slowly. His family, all their possessions, ... double quotes. But what if he didn't? Klaus asks, the horrible possibility dawning on all of them simultaneously. What if the Harrisons got to him before he could run? The smoke continues to rise, dark and ominous against the blue Wyoming sky. It's too far away to see details, but they all know what burning buildings look like. And they all know what the Harrison gang is capable of when they want to send a message. We have to check, Heinrich says. We have to know. Klaus looks at his wife, at their home, at the children playing innocently in the yard. Every instinct tells him to stay here, to protect what's his rather than riding off to investigate what might be a trap. But the bonds of community run deep among the German settlers. They came to America together, suffered together, and they can't abandon each other now. Anna, he says in German, take the children to the Zimmermans. All the families should gather together until we know what we're dealing with. Anna nods, understanding the wisdom of consolidation, even as her heart breaks at the thought of Klaus riding toward danger. She kisses him quickly, fiercely, then hurries toward the house to collect their children. The men mount up and ride hard toward the Muller farm, each lost in his own thoughts about what they might find. The smoke grows thicker as they approach, and soon they can smell the acrid stench of burning wood and something else. Something organic and terrible that none of them want to identify. They crest a small rise and see what remains of Wilhelm Muller's homestead spread out below them. The house is gone, reduced to a smoldering foundation and scattered debris. The barn has collapsed into itself, sending up fresh plumes of smoke as the wind fans the remaining flames. But it's what they find in the yard that stops them cold. Wilhelm Muller hangs from the lone cottonwood tree, beside his well, his body swaying gently in the morning breeze. His wife Bertha lies nearby, her dress torn and bloodied, her lifeless eyes staring at the uncaring sky. The children don't look, Klaus says sharply as Heinrich starts to dismount. There's nothing we can do for them now, but Friedrich has already seen enough to understand the full scope of the Harrison gang's brutality. They killed them all. he whispers. The entire family. Even the little ones. Heinrich vomits into the grass, overwhelmed by the casual cruelty of what they're witnessing. These weren't soldiers killed in battle, or criminals executed for their crimes. These were innocent farmers, murdered for the crime of owning land that someone else wanted. This is what happens, Klaus says grimly, to families who try to run. The Harrisons wanted to make sure we understood the stakes. A piece of paper has been nailed to the cottonwood tree, just above Wilhelm's head. Klaus rides closer, and reads the message scrawled in crude letters. This is what happens to squatters. Sunset deadline still stands. The message is clear. Running won't save them. The Harrison gang intends to kill every German family in the valley, whether they fight or flee. The only choice left is how they want to die, on their knees or on their feet. We need to get back, Friedrich says, his voice thick with shock and rage. Warn the others. Prepare for what's coming. As they ride away from the smoking ruins of the Muller farm, each man carries with him the image of what the Harrison gang is willing to do to innocent families. The scales have fallen from their eyes regarding the nature of their enemies. This isn't about water rights or property disputes. This is about survival, pure and simple. By the time they reach the Zimmerman farm where the families have gathered, word has already spread. The women and children huddle together in the farmhouse, while the men gather in the yard to discuss their options. We can't fight them. Ernst Weber, Klaus's younger brother, argues. Did you see what they did to the Mullers? We're farmers, not soldiers. Then we die like farmers. Klaus replies harshly. Because running won't save us. The Mullers tried to run, and you saw how that worked out. Heinrich has been quietly thinking while the others argued. Now he speaks up with a plan that's desperate enough to work. What if we don't wait for them to come to us? What if we take the fight to them? Attack the Harrison ranch? Friedrich asks incredulously. That's suicide. Maybe, Heinrich admits, but it's better than sitting here waiting to be slaughtered like sheep. At least if we attack, we choose the time and place. Klaus considers this. The Harrison ranch lies about 10 miles south, built like a fortress with high walls and strategic positioning, but it's also where the Harrison gang stores their weapons, their supplies, and their stolen wealth. If the German settlers could somehow take it, it might work, Klaus says slowly. If we could get inside the walls, burn them out, with what? Ernst asks. We have hunting rifles and shotguns. They have military weapons, enough ammunition to fight a war. Then we don't fight their kind of war, Heinrich replies. We fight our kind of war. Fire stealth, hit them when they're not expecting it. Anna has been listening from the doorway, and now she steps forward with a suggestion that surprises everyone. The women should go. Tonight, before you attack. Take the children and head for the territorial capital. Even if you win, there will be consequences. Federal marshals, territorial troops, someone needs to survive to tell the story. Klaus starts to object, but Anna cuts him off. If we stay, we die with you. If we go, at least someone lives to remember what happened here, to remember why it happened. The logic is sound, even as it tears at every man's heart. They came to America to build better lives for their families, and now they're planning to send those families away while they face almost certain death. How long do we have? Friedrich asks, looking at the sun's position in the sky. 3 hours. Until sunset, Klaus estimates. Maybe 4. Heinrich nods grimly. Enough time to get the women and children started toward safety, then ride for the Harrison ranch. If we're going to do this, we need to move fast before they have time to prepare. As the families say their goodbyes, each interaction carries the weight of finality. Wives kiss husbands they may never see again. Children cling to fathers who are riding off to war. The German settlers who came to Wyoming seeking peace are about to engage in violence that will echo through territorial history. Anna holds Klaus close, her tears dampening his shirt. Come back to me, she whispers in German. Promise me you'll come back. I promise to try, Klaus replies. Because it's the only honest answer he can give. The moment of truth has arrived. The German settlers are about to launch a desperate attack against overwhelming odds, while their families flee into the wilderness. This is the calm before the storm that will change Wyoming territory forever. Are you ready for the explosive climax? Hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments. Do you think the settlers have any chance against the Harrison gang? Or are we about to witness a massacre? The next part will leave you breathless. As the sun begins its descent toward the western horizon, two groups move across the Wyoming prairie with desperate purpose. To the north, a convoy of wagons carries the German women and children toward the territorial capital, and whatever safety they might find there. To the south, 15 German men ride hard toward the Harrison Ranch, and a confrontation that will determine the fate of their entire community. Klaus leads the attackers, his hunting rifle across his saddle and his heart heavy with the knowledge that he may never see his family again. Behind him ride his neighbors and friends, men who are bakers and farmers, just that morning, but who have transformed themselves into warriors by necessity. The Harrison Ranch comes into view as the shadows begin to lengthen. A sprawling complex of buildings surrounded by high wooden walls topped with barbed wire. Smoke rises from the main house's chimney, and lamplight glows in several windows. It looks peaceful, prosperous, civilized, a complete contrast to the charred ruins of the Muller farm. How many men do you think they have? Friedrich whispers. Heinrich studies the ranch through an old pair of field glasses. I count 6 horses in the corral, plus the 3 Harrison brothers. Maybe 10 men total. Still better odds than waiting for them to come to us. Klaus observes grimly. The plan they've developed is simple in its desperation. Create multiple fires simultaneously to force the defenders outside, then pick them off with rifle fire from concealment. It's not sophisticated, but sophistication is a luxury they can't afford. Ernst Weber, Klaus's younger brother, carries a canvas bag filled with bottles of lamp oil and strips of cloth torn from old shirts. The other men carry similar, improvised, incendiary devices, crude but effective weapons for the kind of warfare they're planning. Remember, Klaus says quietly, we're not here to rob them or take prisoners. We're here to end this, permanently. No mercy, because they showed none to the Muller. The words taste bitter in his mouth. Klaus Weber was a peaceful man who'd never intentionally harmed another human being in his life. But the frontier has a way of changing men, of stripping away civilization's veneer to reveal the savage beneath. They dismount and approach on foot, using the gathering darkness and the natural terrain for concealment. The ranch's high walls that were designed to keep attackers out also serve to hide the defenders' movements, making it impossible to know exactly where their enemies might be positioned. Heinrich reaches the south wall first, and immediately begins preparing his fire bottles. The dry Wyoming wind will spread flames quickly once they get started. But they need to achieve surprise if their plan has any chance of success. Klaus positions himself at the main gate, ready to pick off anyone who tries to escape the burning buildings through gaps in the wooden planks. He can see movement in the ranch yard, men going about their evening routines, completely unaware that death is approaching from multiple directions. Now, Klaus whispers, and 15 German farmers-turned-warriors light their improvised weapons and hurl them over the ranch walls. The effect is immediate and devastating. Flames bloom across the compound as lamp oil ignites hay bales, wooden buildings, and anything else combustible within reach. Shouts of alarm ring out from inside the walls as the Harrison gang realizes they're under attack. The first man to emerge from the burning buildings is one of Thomas Harrison's hired guns, a lean killer named Jake Morrison, who stumbles out of the bunkhouse with his clothes on fire and his rifle forgotten in his panic. Friedrich's hunting rifle barks once, and Morrison pitches forward into the dirt. His desperate escape attempt ended permanently. More men pour out of the various buildings, some fighting the fires, others searching for weapons, or trying to identify their attackers. The confusion works in the Germans' favor. In the flickering light of the flames, it's difficult to distinguish friend from foe, and several of the ranch hands accidentally shoot at each other in the chaos. Thomas Harrison himself emerges from the main house carrying a military-style rifle and shouting orders that no one can hear over the roar of the spreading fires. He's dressed in his nightclothes, but moves with the calm efficiency of a man who's survived countless violent encounters. There, Samuel Harrison shouts, pointing toward Klaus's position near the gate. Muzzle flash by the gate. A volley of rifle fire erupts from the ranch yard, bullets splintering the wooden gate and sending Klaus diving for cover behind a water trough. The German settlers' advantage of surprise is rapidly evaporating as the defenders organize themselves and begin to fight back effectively. Heinrich's position at the south wall becomes untenable as multiple shooters focus their fire on his location. He abandons his cover and sprints toward a rocky outcropping 50 yards away, bullets kicking up dirt around his feet as he runs. One shot catches him in the shoulder, spinning him around, but he manages to stay upright and reach the relative safety of the rocks. Young Marcus Harrison appears on the roof of the main house, having climbed up through some interior access. From this elevated position, he has a clear view of several German positions and begins picking them off with methodical precision. His first shot kills Johann Stolz instantly, the bullet taking the baker's head clean off his shoulders. "Get that bastard off the roof," Klaus shouts, but the words are barely audible over the gunfire and the crackling of flames. Ernst Weber attempts to flank around to get a clear shot at Marcus, but runs straight into Samuel Harrison, who'd been moving to secure the same position. The two men see each other simultaneously, raise their weapons simultaneously, and fire simultaneously. Ernst's hunting rifle bullet catches Samuel in the chest, punching through his ribs and into his lungs. But Samuel's revolver bullet finds Ernst's throat, tearing through arteries and windpipe in a spray of blood that paints the ground red. Both men go down hard, and both die within moments of each other. Klaus sees his brother fall, and roars with a sound that's barely human. All tactical thinking abandons him as grief and rage take control, and he charges directly toward the main gate with his rifle raised. Bullets whine past his head, but fury makes him reckless and seemingly invincible. He reaches the gate and puts his shoulder against it, driving the burning wooden barrier inward with strength born of desperation. The gate crashes open, and Klaus finds himself face to face with Thomas Harrison himself. For a moment, time seems suspended as the two men stare at each other across 10 feet of blood-soaked ground. Thomas with his military rifle, Klaus with his simple hunting gun. The architect of terror facing the farmer who'd finally had enough. "Should have taken the offer, Klaus," Thomas says conversationally, even as flames consume his ranch around them. "Should have packed up and left when you had the chance." "Should have left my family alone," Klaus replies, raising his rifle. Both men fire at the same instant. Thomas's bullet catches Klaus in the stomach, doubling him over and sending him stumbling backward. But Klaus's shot finds its mark in Thomas Harrison's head, ending the gang leader's reign of terror with a spray of blood and brains across the burning ranch house wall. Klaus falls to his knees, clutching his stomach as blood seeps between his fingers. Around him, the battle continues to rage, but he can feel his strength ebbing with each heartbeat. The wound is mortal. He knows it with the clarity that sometimes comes in life's final moments. Friedrich appears beside him, having abandoned his own position to help his wounded friend. "Klaus, stay with me." "The families," Klaus gasps. "Did they get away?" "Hours ago," Friedrich assures him. "They're safe. Anna and the children are safe." Klaus nods, finding peace in that knowledge, even as darkness begins to close in around the edges of his vision. He's done what he came to do, broken the Harrison gang's power, protected his family, proved that sometimes ordinary men can stand up to monsters and win. The remaining ranch hands, demoralized by the death of their leader and faced with buildings that are now completely engulfed in flames, begin to slip away into the darkness. Some carry wounds that will slow their escape. Others are simply smart enough to recognize when a cause is lost. Marcus Harrison, still on the roof of the main house, finds himself cut off by the spreading fire. The building beneath him has become an inferno, and his elevated position has transformed from an advantage into a death trap. He tries to climb down, but the walls are too hot to touch, and the flames are rising faster than he can descend. "Help me," he screams to the surviving ranch hands, but they're too busy saving themselves to worry about him. Marcus Harrison, the youngest and most vicious of the brothers, dies as the roof collapses beneath him, sending him plummeting into the flames below. By midnight, the Harrison ranch is nothing but smoldering ruins, and the German settlers' war is over. Of the 15 men who rode south that evening, only 8 survived to see the dawn. But their sacrifice has broken the Harrison gang forever. Thomas and Samuel are dead. Marcus is dead, and their hired killers have scattered to the winds. Friedrich kneels beside Klaus's body and gently closes his friend's eyes. The farmer, who'd never wanted to fight, had died a warrior's death, protecting everything he held dear. His wife and children would live to see Wyoming become a state, would prosper in the America that Klaus had helped make possible. Heinrich, wounded but alive, surveys the destruction around them. "What do we do now?" he asks. "We go home," Friedrich replies simply. "We rebuild. We remember." The surviving German settlers mount their horses and ride back toward their farms, carrying their dead and their wounded, but also carrying something else. The knowledge that they'd stood up to evil and prevailed. The cost had been terrible, but the alternative would have been worse. Behind them, the Harrison ranch continues to burn, sending up a pillar of smoke that can be seen for miles in every direction. It serves as a beacon to every settler in the territory. Justice may be slow in coming to the frontier, but it comes nonetheless. When the territorial marshal finally arrives 3 days later, He finds the German families rebuilding their community and their lives. Anna Weber mourns her husband, but also honors his sacrifice by continuing the work they'd started together. Their children grow up hearing the story of their father's courage, and they pass that story down to their own children. In turn, the Harrison gang's reign of terror is over, ended not by law enforcement or military intervention, but by ordinary people who decided they'd rather die free than live as slaves. Their victory comes at a tremendous cost, but it changes Wyoming territory forever. Water rights disputes continue. Of course, they're part of the fabric of Western life. But never again will a gang of thugs be allowed to systematically murder families over irrigation claims. The German settlers' stand has established a precedent that even the most violent predators understand. Push peaceful people too far, and they stop being peaceful. The creek that started the whole conflict continues to flow past the surviving farms, carrying with it the memory of those who died to keep it free. Each spring, when the snow melt swells the stream to its banks, Anna Weber stands at the water's edge and remembers her husband's sacrifice. The children who were carried to safety that night grow up to become teachers, merchants, farmers, and citizens of the state of Wyoming. They remember their father's courage and their mother's strength, and they build a society worthy of that sacrifice. The burned ruins of the Harrison Ranch gradually disappear beneath the prairie grass. But the story lives on. It becomes legend, then history, then memory passed down through generations of Wyoming families who understand that freedom isn't free, and justice sometimes requires ordinary people to do extraordinary things. Klaus Weber's grave bears a simple inscription: he died protecting his family. It's enough, more than enough, for a man who asked nothing more from life than the chance to build something lasting for those he loved. The wind still cuts across Wyoming like a blade, but now it carries different stories. Stories of courage in the face of evil, of community in the face of isolation, of hope in the face of despair. The German settlers who came seeking the American dream found something even more valuable: the knowledge that they had the strength to defend it when necessary. What an incredible journey through one of the most shocking chapters in Wyoming's frontier history. The German settlers' desperate stand against the Harrison gang shows us what ordinary people are capable of when pushed beyond their breaking point. Klaus Weber and his neighbors proved that sometimes the only way to stop evil is to meet it head-on, no matter the cost. If this story of courage and sacrifice moved you, please hit that subscribe button and share this video with anyone who needs to understand that freedom has always required brave people willing to defend it. Drop a comment and let me know what you think about the settlers' decision to fight rather than flee. Were they heroes, or did they make the situation worse? I read every comment, and your thoughts help shape future stories. Thanks for watching this incredible true story, and I'll see you in the next episode, where we'll explore another forgotten moment in American history that will leave you amazed by what people can accomplish when they refuse to give up.